This video contains audio content only. There are no visual elements or images accompanying the audio. If you're expecting to see video footage, please note that this is an intentional audio-only presentation. We recommend listening to this content rather than watching the screen. Thank you for your understanding and enjoy the audio. Welcome to this exploration of ghost marriage, a practice both ancient and enduring, shrouded in mystery and often misunderstood. In this article, we'll delve into the captivating world of posthumous unions, where the veil between the living and the dead is lifted, and the bonds of matrimony extend beyond the realm of mortality. We'll unravel this complex custom in easy-to-understand language, shedding light on its history, rituals, and the diverse motivations behind it. Prepare to journey into a world where love, loss, tradition, and superstition intertwine, a world where weddings take place under the watchful gaze of tombstones, and vows echo with the hushed reverence of a graveyard. We'll explore the origins of ghost marriage, tracing its roots back thousands of years to ancient China, and examine how it has evolved across cultures and time. We'll uncover the beliefs and anxieties that fuel this practice, from the desire to appease restless spirits and ensure happiness in the afterlife to the societal pressures surrounding marriage, lineage, and the fear of leaving unmarried souls to wander alone. This exploration will take us from the bustling cities and rural villages of China, where the whispers of this ancient custom still resonate, to Taiwan, where unique rituals highlight the enduring pressure on women to marry, even in death. We'll venture beyond East Asia, examining variations of ghost marriage in other cultures, including France, where posthumous marriage gained legal recognition in the wake of tragedy. We'll delve into the specific rituals and ceremonies that mark these spectral unions, from the consultation of feng shui masters and the exchange of symbolic dowries to the poignant blending of wedding and funeral rites. We'll witness the burning of paper effigies, the placement of funeral plaques, and the symbolic uniting of bones in shared graves, all designed to ensure a harmonious union in the afterlife. But this journey is not without its shadows. We'll also confront the darker aspects of ghost marriage, exploring the grim trade in corpses and ashes that has emerged in some regions, driven by desperation and the lure of profit. We'll examine the human cost of this tradition, the vulnerability of those exploited, and the ethical implications of commodifying death. We'll hear the stories of stolen brides and silent grooms, and confront the chilling reality of a market where human remains are treated as mere commodities. By the end of this exploration, you'll have a deeper understanding of the complex tapestry of beliefs, traditions, and societal pressures that underpin ghost marriage. You'll gain insights into the motivations of the living and the perceived needs of the dead, and appreciate how this ancient custom reflects both the enduring power of human connection and the darker aspects of our relationship with death. Prepare to be captivated, intrigued, and perhaps even unsettled, as we unravel the mysteries of ghost marriage and explore the enduring human fascination with love, loss, and the afterlife. Chapter 1. Whispers of the Afterlife, an Introduction to Ghost Marriages. Imagine a wedding shrouded in twilight, not beneath a canopy of flowers, but under the watchful gaze of ancient tombstones. The air is thick with the scent of incense, not of wedding cake, and the vows exchanged echo not with joyful laughter, but with the hushed reverence of a graveyard. This is the disquieting yet captivating world of ghost marriage, a practice where the veil between the living and the dead is lifted, and the bonds of matrimony extend beyond the realm of mortality. Ghost marriage, also known as posthumous marriage or spirit marriage, is a tradition as old as time itself, its roots stretching back over 3,000 years in China. It's a practice born from a complex tapestry of beliefs and anxieties, a testament to the human need for connection that persists even in the face of death. While the specifics vary across cultures and time, the core concept remains the same: a union, whether symbolic or physical, between the living and the deceased, or even between two souls who have already departed this world. In China, the whispers of this ancient custom are still heard in rural villages and bustling cities alike. Here, the belief persists that the unmarried dead, particularly young men lost in mining accidents or women who died before finding a partner, wander the afterlife alone and restless. Ghost marriage offers a solution, a way to appease these wandering spirits and ensure their happiness in the next world. The practice is often steeped in tradition, with families consulting feng shui masters to find suitable matches for their deceased loved ones, just as they would for the living. Dowries are paid, ceremonies are held, and the deceased are symbolically united, often with paper effigies or ancestral tablets standing in for the absent partner. But the motivations behind ghost marriage are not always so benign. In some cases, the practice is driven by the stigma surrounding unmarried women, the fear of a daughter being excluded from the family lineage and left without descendants to care for her spirit. For men, a ghost marriage might be arranged to fulfill filial piety, allowing a deceased son to have heirs and continue the family name, even in death. And in the most disturbing instances, the desire for a ghost bride has fueled a macabre trade in stolen corpses, a chilling reminder of the lengths some will go to adhere to tradition. A recent case in China saw a man charged with murdering 2 women with mental disabilities, his motive? To sell their bodies for ghost weddings, a tragic example of the dark underbelly of this ancient custom. Taiwan, too, has its own unique take on ghost marriage. Here, if an unmarried woman passes away, her family may leave red packets filled with cash, paper money, a lock of hair, and a fingernail in a public place. The first man to pick up the packets is considered chosen by the deceased woman's spirit as her groom, and it's believed to be bad luck to refuse. This ritual, while seemingly less sinister than the corpse trade in mainland China, still highlights the pressure on women to marry, even in death. The forms ghost marriage takes are as varied as the cultures that practice it. Sometimes, it's a union between 2 deceased individuals, their families arranging a symbolic wedding to unite them in the afterlife. In other cases, a living person may be married to a corpse in a secret ritual, a practice that blurs the lines between the living and the dead. There are even instances where a living person marries a symbolic representation of the deceased, such as a photograph, a spirit tablet, or even an effigy. And in France, following a devastating dam disaster in 1959, posthumous marriage gained legal recognition, allowing individuals to marry their deceased partners under specific circumstances. This practice, though born from tragedy, offers a unique perspective on the enduring power of love and commitment. Among Chinese communities in Southeast Asia, variations of the custom persist, each with its own unique rituals and beliefs. The reasons behind these practices are as diverse as the rituals themselves. Some believe that ghost marriage pacifies restless spirits, preventing them from haunting the living. Others see it as a way to honor the deceased, fulfilling their unfulfilled desires and ensuring their happiness in the afterlife. And in some cultures, it's a means of dealing with societal pressures and anxieties, a way to alleviate the stigma surrounding unmarried individuals or to ensure the continuation of a family lineage. But the world of ghost marriage is not without its shadows. The demand for ghost brides has, in some cases, led to grave robbing and even murder, a grim reminder of the potential for exploitation and violence when tradition clashes with desperation. The illegal corpse trade, a black market where the bodies of deceased women are bought and sold for exorbitant prices, casts a dark pall over this ancient custom. As we delve deeper into the world of ghost marriage, we'll uncover the complex interplay of love, loss, tradition, and superstition that fuels this intriguing and sometimes unsettling practice. We'll explore the motivations of the living and the perceived needs of the dead, examining the ways in which ghost marriage reflects both the enduring power of human connection and the darker aspects of our relationship with death. Prepare to journey into a world where the whispers of the afterlife intertwine with the choices of the living, a world where the boundaries of love and loss are tested, and the mysteries of death are explored through the lens of marriage. Chapter 2. Echoes of the Past, Shadows of the Future, the Evolving Face of Ghost Marriage. The origins of ghost marriage, or *Minghun*, as it's known in Chinese, are veiled in the mists of antiquity, reaching back over 3 millennia to the Shang dynasty, 1600 to 1046 BC, and gaining prominence during the Han dynasty, 202 BC to 220 AD. Initially, this spectral union was primarily a ritual to unite 2 deceased single individuals in the afterlife, ensuring their companionship and preventing loneliness in the next world. Ancient Chinese beliefs held that the spirit world mirrored the living world, and thus, an unmarried individual would experience the same desires and anxieties in the afterlife. The ghost wedding, with its elaborate rituals, was intended to appease these restless spirits and ensure harmony in the hereafter. Families would meticulously arrange these unions, paying close attention to factors such as age and family background, just as they would for a living marriage. Feng Shui masters, experts in harmonizing energies, were often consulted to act as otherworldly matchmakers, ensuring a compatible union between the deceased. The ghost wedding ceremony itself was a complex affair, reflecting the importance of marriage in Chinese culture. The bride's family, even in death, would demand a bride price, a symbolic payment acknowledging the value of their daughter. Dowries, consisting of paper tributes representing jewelry, servants, opulent mansions, and all the comforts of life, were also exchanged. These paper offerings were then burned, symbolically transported to the spirit world for the couple's use. The ceremony itself often involved the presence of funeral plaques representing the bride and groom, a banquet for the living attendees, and, in some regions, the symbolic transfer of the bride's bones to the groom's grave, signifying their eternal union. However, over time, the practice of ghost marriage has morphed and adapted, sometimes taking on darker, more sinister forms. In some instances, the ritual evolved to include the marriage of a living person to a corpse in a secret ceremony. The 2016 Gansu murder case stands as a chilling example of this dark evolution. In this horrific incident, 3 men murdered 2 women with mental disabilities with the express purpose of selling their bodies for ghost marriages. The men, driven by greed and a twisted interpretation of tradition, exploited vulnerable individuals to profit from the demand for ghost brides. In another disturbing case, a woman narrowly survived being buried alive after being drugged and sold for a ghost marriage. She regained consciousness during the burial and, by frantically pounding on the inside of her coffin, alerted the horrified family who had purchased her. These cases highlight the vulnerability of marginalized individuals and the potential for abuse when tradition is distorted for personal gain. In Shaanxi Province, a region heavily reliant on the dangerous coal mining industry, ghost marriages often serve as a form of emotional compensation for bereaved families. The high rate of fatalities among young, unmarried men in the mines creates a significant demand for ghost brides. For parents who have lost sons in these tragic accidents, arranging a ghost marriage offers a semblance of closure, a way to provide for their son's happiness in the afterlife and fulfill their perceived duty as parents. This practice is deeply rooted in the belief that fulfilling the wishes of the deceased, even in death, is essential to avoid misfortune and appease their restless spirits. Across the strait in Taiwan, ghost marriage takes on a different form. If an unmarried woman dies, her family may leave red packets containing not only cash and paper money but also deeply personal items like a lock of hair or a fingernail in a public place. The first man to pick up the packets is believed to be the groom chosen by the deceased woman's spirit, and refusing this otherworldly union is considered an invitation to bad luck. This practice, while less overtly violent than the corpse trade in mainland China, still underscores the societal pressure on women to marry, extending even beyond the grave. In a recent, highly publicized case, a Taiwanese man married his deceased girlfriend in an elaborate ceremony, a modern adaptation of the custom that garnered widespread attention when a video of the event went viral. The video, shared widely on social media, sparked public discussion and renewed interest in the practice of ghost marriage. Even in cosmopolitan Hong Kong, echoes of this ancient custom persist. A researcher studying ghost weddings encountered taxi drivers who all had personal experiences with the tradition, either having arranged a ghost marriage for a family member or having witnessed one firsthand. This prevalence within the community underscores the tradition's enduring presence, even in modern urban environments. A prayer commonly used in these afterlife weddings reads, "So-and-so, I hereby inform you. You died at a young age and thus did not realize the great principle of marriage. You sleep alone in the dark world and lack the intimacy of man and woman. Just as living people long for companionship, the dead fear loneliness as well. We selected this auspicious day for the rite of your union." This poignant prayer sheds light on the underlying beliefs surrounding ghost marriage, emphasizing the desire to provide comfort and companionship to the deceased in the afterlife. In France, the tradition of posthumous marriage, though distinct from the Chinese practice, shares some underlying motivations. In 1959, following a devastating dam collapse that claimed hundreds of lives, a young woman whose fiancé perished in the tragedy made a heartfelt plea to President Charles de Gaulle. She requested permission to marry her deceased beloved, a request that resonated with a nation grappling with immense loss. Moved by her plea, de Gaulle facilitated the creation of a law legalizing posthumous marriage. This law, while requiring a formal request to the president and thorough vetting to prevent abuse, allows individuals to marry their deceased partners under specific circumstances, such as when a couple's wedding plans were tragically interrupted by death or when a bride-to-be is pregnant. The law offers both symbolic comfort and practical legal benefits, reflecting a compassionate response to the complexities of grief and loss. The evolving face of ghost marriage reflects a complex interplay of cultural beliefs, societal pressures, and individual motivations. While the practice has taken on different forms across cultures and throughout history, the core desire to honor the dead, provide solace to the living, and address anxieties surrounding death and the afterlife remains constant. From the ancient rituals of China to the modern adaptations in Taiwan and the legal recognition in France, ghost marriage continues to intrigue and, at times, unsettle, offering a unique window into the diverse ways humans grapple with mortality and the enduring power of love and loss. Chapter 3. The Weight of Silence. Unraveling the motivations behind ghost marriage. The motivations behind ghost marriage are as multifaceted as the cultures that practice it, woven from a complex tapestry of love, loss, tradition, and fear. In China, where the custom is known as *Minghun*, the reasons range from fulfilling a son's perceived needs in the afterlife to appeasing restless spirits and safeguarding the living from misfortune. These motivations, however, are far from monolithic, varying across regions and reflecting the unique anxieties and beliefs of each community. In Shaanxi Province, the heart of China's coal country, the specter of death looms large. The dangerous work in the mines claims the lives of many young, unmarried men, leaving families devastated and grappling with the loss of their sons, often their primary breadwinners. For these bereaved families, the ghost wedding offers a unique form of emotional compensation, a way to care for their sons even in death. It's a final act of parental love, a way to provide for a child who died too young, working tirelessly to support his family. The ghost wedding, in this context, becomes a poignant expression of grief and a desperate attempt to find solace and closure. As one taxi driver in Shaanxi, who had witnessed numerous ghost marriages, explained to a researcher, "It's simply very normal in the region. A matter-of-fact response that speaks volumes about the pervasiveness of the practice and its integration into the fabric of local life." This sense of duty to the deceased is echoed in the story of Li Chaolong, a young man from Henan province who succumbed to leukemia. His mother, driven by tradition and love for her son, spent a year searching for a suitable ghost bride. Finally, she found Li Shuying, a woman from the same village who was also nearing death. The two were symbolically united in a ghost wedding shortly after Li Shuying passed away. For Li Chaolong's family, this ritual was not merely a superstitious practice but a deeply meaningful act of love and closure. It allowed them to fulfill their perceived duty to their son, ensuring that he was not alone in the afterlife and providing him with the companionship they believed he desired. The wedding, a blend of funeral and celebration, allowed the family to grieve while simultaneously honoring their son's memory and providing for his perceived needs in the next world. The practice of ghost marriage is further complicated by China's significant gender imbalance. The 2014 census revealed a skewed sex ratio at birth, with 115.9 boys born for every 100 girls. This disparity, a result of the now abandoned one-child policy and a cultural preference for sons, has created a scarcity of women, particularly in rural areas. This imbalance has, in turn, fueled a disturbing trend: the rise of a black market for female corpses. The demand for ghost brides has made the remains of young women a valuable commodity, with prices escalating dramatically over the years. What once cost around 5,000 yuan, $700, in the 1990s has now skyrocketed to over 150,000 yuan, $21,000, in some areas. This grim trade has spurred grave robbing, kidnapping, and even murder, as desperate families seek to secure a bride for their deceased sons. The desperation is palpable in the auction wars reported at hospitals, where families of deceased bachelors compete fiercely for the bodies of recently deceased young women, driving up prices and further fueling the macabre trade. For women in traditional Chinese culture, the pressure to marry extends even beyond the grave. The social stigma surrounding unmarried women is deeply rooted in the belief that they cannot be placed on the family altar, the sacred space dedicated to ancestor worship. Without a husband to provide a patrilineage, a deceased daughter is considered a source of shame, excluded from the family lineage and left without descendants to care for her spirit. This anxiety is so pervasive that even in contemporary Hong Kong, unmarried women are sometimes assumed to have psychological problems, a stark reminder of the societal pressure to conform to traditional expectations. In the past, unmarried women were often not even allowed to die in their natal homes, instead being taken to temples, sheds, or other outlying buildings to breathe their last. This exclusion highlights the profound social isolation faced by unmarried women, both in life and in death. Ghost marriage, in this context, becomes a way to address this stigma, providing a deceased daughter with a symbolic husband and a place on the family altar, ensuring that she is cared for and remembered in the afterlife. This anxiety surrounding unmarried daughters is not merely a relic of the past. In the early 20th century, female silk producers in the Canton Delta actively sought ghost marriages, a practice they referred to as marrying a tablet. These women, driven by a desire for economic independence, saw ghost marriage as a way to appease their family's desire for them to marry while simultaneously maintaining their autonomy and financial freedom. They would compete fiercely for the opportunity to marry a deceased man, a testament to the enduring power of social pressure and the lengths women would go to navigate the restrictive confines of traditional gender roles. Beyond the practical concerns of lineage and social status, the practice of ghost marriage is deeply intertwined with the fear of restless spirits and the belief that the dead must have their wishes fulfilled to avoid bringing misfortune upon the living. This belief is reflected in the offerings burned for the deceased, symbolic provisions for their afterlife needs. These offerings often include paper money, miniature houses, and even paper servants, all intended to ensure the deceased's comfort and contentment in the next world. In some regions, a prayer for afterlife weddings is recited, emphasizing the deceased's loneliness and the importance of providing them with companionship in the hereafter. The prayer, found in Hong Kong, reads in part, "You sleep alone in the dark world and lack the intimacy of man and woman. We sent a betrothal for you so your souls might meet." This poignant plea highlights the underlying belief that the dead experience emotions and desires similar to the living, and that neglecting these needs can have dire consequences for both the deceased and their living relatives. The fear of restless spirits is vividly illustrated in the chilling story of a college student who, desperate for tuition money, agreed to marry a ghost bride. Initially skeptical and driven purely by financial need, he soon found himself plagued by nightmares and unsettling occurrences. He was haunted by the ghost bride, who appeared in his dreams and moved objects in his room, a constant reminder of the spiritual weight of the ritual he had entered into. Desperate to escape the haunting, he consulted spiritualists and traditional healers, seeking ways to exorcise the ghost and break the unwanted bond. His experiences underscore the potential consequences of entering into a ghost marriage without genuine belief or respect for the tradition. Another chilling tale revolves around a man named Hao, whose present life is disrupted by the vengeful spirit of a ghost bride. His ghost marriage, it turns out, was interrupted in his past life, leaving the bride's spirit restless and resentful. She haunts him relentlessly, determined to complete the wedding ritual and finally find peace. The details of this particular case highlight the specific rituals involved in a ghost marriage, including the creation and burning of an effigy representing the deceased bride. The burning of the effigy, a common practice in ghost marriages, is meant to symbolically transport the bride's spirit to the afterlife, uniting her with her husband. However, in Hao's case, the interrupted ritual leaves the bride's spirit trapped between worlds, unable to move on and seeking closure through haunting. In Taiwan, the practice of leaving red packets for prospective ghost grooms provides a unique perspective on the tradition. The inclusion of personal items like hair and fingernails in the packets adds a layer of intimacy and connection to the ritual, suggesting that the deceased woman's spirit is actively involved in choosing her groom. The belief that refusing a ghost marriage brings bad luck further emphasizes the social pressure to adhere to tradition, even when it involves a union with the deceased. The diverse motivations behind ghost marriage, from providing comfort and companionship to appeasing restless spirits and adhering to societal pressures, highlight the complex and often contradictory ways in which humans grapple with mortality and the afterlife. The practice, while steeped in tradition and often driven by love and loss, can also be exploited for personal gain, leading to tragic consequences. As we move forward, we'll delve deeper into the specific rituals and traditions surrounding ghost marriage, exploring the ways in which these ceremonies reflect the beliefs and anxieties of the cultures that practice them. Chapter 4. The Spectral Bridegroom and the Silent Vows. Ghost Marriage Rituals Across Cultures. The rituals surrounding ghost marriage are as diverse and nuanced as the cultures that practice them, a tapestry woven with threads of love, loss, tradition, and fear. These ceremonies, often a poignant blend of wedding and funeral rites, offer a glimpse into the complex relationship between the living and the dead, a testament to the human desire for connection that transcends even the boundaries of mortality. In China, ghost marriage, or Minghun*, involves a complex choreography of rituals designed to unite the deceased and the afterlife. Families consult feng shui masters, not just to determine auspicious burial sites, but also to act as otherworldly matchmakers, carefully considering factors like age, family background, and astrological compatibility to ensure a harmonious union between the departed. The bride price and dowry, integral components of traditional Chinese weddings, are also observed in Minghun*, but with a spectral twist. Instead of material wealth, families exchange elaborate paper tributes, meticulously crafted replicas of jewelry, money, servants, and even lavish mansions, all symbolically consumed by flames, transported to the spirit realm for the couple's eternal use. The wedding ceremony itself can vary regionally, but often features the funeral plaques of the bride and groom, placed side by side as if presiding over the proceedings. A banquet, far from a somber funeral meal, is prepared for the living guests, often featuring traditional wedding dishes and celebratory toasts. The atmosphere, however, is a unique blend of joy and sorrow, a celebration of a union tinged with the melancholy of loss. In some regions, the most crucial part of the ritual involves the careful exhumation of the bride's bones, which are then placed within the groom's grave, physically uniting them in their eternal resting place. This act symbolizes the ultimate union, binding the two souls together in the afterlife. In Taiwan, ghost marriage rituals, while sharing some similarities with those in mainland China, possess their own unique character. When an unmarried woman dies, her family may perform a poignant ritual, leaving red packets in a public place. These are not ordinary red envelopes filled with lucky money. They contain a symbolic offering to a potential ghost groom. Cash and paper money are included, representing financial security in the afterlife, but also deeply personal items, a lock of hair, a fingernail clipping, imbued with the essence of the deceased. The first man to pick up these packets is believed to be chosen by the woman's spirit as her husband, a fateful encounter orchestrated by otherworldly forces. Refusing such a union is considered a grave offense, an invitation to misfortune. The actual wedding ceremony in Taiwan can range from simple to elaborate, often taking place in a temple or the family home. The groom, whether living or represented by a photograph or effigy, is dressed in traditional attire. The ceremony itself may involve the exchange of vows, the burning of incense, and offerings of food and drink to the spirits. In one particularly poignant case, a man married his deceased girlfriend in a highly publicized ceremony. He exchanged vows with a photograph of his beloved, adorned in a bridal gown, and performed traditional wedding rituals, including serving tea to her family. The ceremony, captured in a video that went viral, showcased the depth of his love and grief, and sparked renewed public interest in the practice of ghost marriage. Malaysian ghost marriages, particularly those performed for deceased couples who died before their wedding day, often resemble traditional Malay weddings, albeit with a somber undertone. Families dress effigies or photographs of the deceased couple in elaborate wedding attire, often reflecting the cultural heritage of the region. Rituals may include the exchange of rings, the symbolic tying of the knot, and traditional wedding dances performed by family members. These ceremonies, though tinged with sadness, allow families to fulfill the couple's unrealized dreams, providing a sense of closure and honoring their love story. The focus is on celebrating the life they shared and the future they envisioned together, transforming a tragic loss into a poignant celebration of love and commitment. Beyond China, Taiwan, and Malaysia, ghost marriage traditions exist in other cultures as well. The Nuer tribe of South Sudan practices a form of ghost marriage where a woman may marry a man in the name of his deceased brother, ensuring the continuation of his lineage. This practice, known as levirate marriage, allows the deceased brother's name to live on and provides for his widow and any children she may have. In some cases, a wealthy Nuer woman may even take on the role of a man, marrying another woman who will bear children in the name of a deceased male relative, preserving the family's wealth and social standing. Among the Singaporean Chinese community, ghost marriages serve various purposes, including strengthening family ties, appeasing restless spirits, and addressing the social stigma surrounding unmarried individuals. These ceremonies often involve elaborate rituals, including the exchange of gifts, the burning of incense, and offerings of food and drink to the spirits. The focus is on ensuring the deceased's well-being in the afterlife and maintaining harmony between the living and the dead. In Japan, a unique form of ghost marriage involves marrying the spirit of a deceased person to a doll, providing a symbolic companion for the departed. This practice, while less common than other forms of ghost marriage, offers a poignant expression of grief and a way to honor the deceased's memory. The practice of ghost marriage, in its many forms, reveals a profound human need to connect with loved ones, even beyond the veil of death. These rituals, while sometimes unsettling to outsiders, offer a powerful testament to the enduring strength of love, the complexities of grief, and the diverse ways in which cultures around the world grapple with mortality and the mysteries of the afterlife. They provide a window into the deeply held beliefs and anxieties surrounding death and the hereafter, and offer a unique perspective on the human desire for meaning and connection in the face of loss. Chapter 5. A Market of Shadows: The Grim Trade in Corpses and Ashes. The ethereal veil of ghost marriage, woven with threads of love, loss, and tradition, often conceals a darker, more disturbing reality: a grim trade in corpses and ashes, driven by desperation, superstition, and the lure of profit. This macabre market, fueled by China's gender imbalance and the cultural pressures surrounding marriage and lineage, operates in the shadows, preying on the vulnerable and commodifying death in its most chilling form. The demand for ghost brides, particularly in rural areas with high male fatalities in industries like coal mining, has created a lucrative black market for female corpses. The prices paid for these grim commodities have skyrocketed in recent years, reflecting the growing demand and the scarcity of suitable brides. In the 1990s, a corpse could be purchased for around 5,000 yuan, approximately $700. Today, prices can reach over 150,000 yuan, $21,000, with the most desirable remains, those of young, recently deceased women, commanding the highest prices. Factors like age, appearance, and the freshness of the corpse all play a role in determining its market value. This ghoulish price list transforms the deceased from daughters, sisters, and wives into mere objects of trade, their value determined by their suitability for a spectral marriage. This demand has fueled a surge in grave robbing, with reports emerging from across China of tomb raiders desecrating burial sites and stealing corpses to meet the demand. In 2014, a shocking case in Shandong province saw 11 men arrested for raiding graves and selling the stolen bodies for ghost marriages. They exhumed a woman's 3-month-old corpse and sold it to a middleman for 18,000 yuan, $2,600. A price that more than tripled by the time it reached the family of a deceased bachelor who purchased it for 38,000 yuan, $5,500. This case, with its cold, calculated transactions, exposes the callous disregard for human remains and the dehumanizing nature of the corpse trade. The trade extends beyond the recently deceased to those who have long been laid to rest. In 2015, an entire village in Shaanxi province was gripped by fear and outrage when 14 female corpses were stolen from their graves. Villagers pointed fingers at tomb raiders seeking to profit from the lucrative ghost marriage market. This wholesale theft of bodies highlights the vulnerability of rural communities and the difficulty of protecting burial sites from these ghoulish entrepreneurs. The desecration of graves not only robs families of their loved ones' remains but also adds another layer of trauma to their grief. The desperation for ghost brides has driven some to even more extreme measures. In 2016, in Gansu province, 3 men murdered 2 women with mental disabilities, their sole motive to sell their bodies for ghost marriages. Each body fetched 40,000 yuan, $5,600. A grim testament to the value placed on female corpses in this macabre marketplace. Ma Changhua, the perpetrator of this horrific crime, was later sentenced to death, a stark reminder of the severe penalties for those caught engaging in this illicit trade. In another chilling case from the same year, a woman with disabilities narrowly escaped being buried alive after being drugged and sold as a ghost bride. She regained consciousness inside the coffin and, by desperately pounding on the wood, alerted the family who had purchased her. This harrowing tale underscores the vulnerability of marginalized individuals, particularly those with disabilities, who are often targeted by this gruesome trade. The black market for corpses and ashes flourished between 2017 and 2019 in the provinces of Shandong, Shaanxi, and Shaanxi. The price of a female corpse, driven by the insatiable demand, reached hundreds of thousands of yuan. Shockingly, the trade expanded to include the bodies of married, elderly women, demonstrating the widening scope of this grim market. In a desperate attempt to protect their loved ones' remains, graveyards in Henan province resorted to installing CCTV cameras and reinforcing coffins with concrete, a stark illustration of the lengths families must go to safeguard their ancestors' resting places. The motivations of those involved in this trade are as varied as the victims. For some, it's a matter of pure greed, a chance to exploit a deeply ingrained tradition for financial gain. Impoverished individuals, driven by desperation and the lack of economic opportunities, see the corpse trade as a way to make quick money. For others, like the man arrested in Liangcheng County, Inner Mongolia, who murdered a woman to sell her body as a ghost bride, it's a calculated act of violence, a chilling example of the lengths some will go to for profit. On the other side of the equation are the families desperate to fulfill the tradition of ghost marriage, driven by a complex mix of love, duty, and fear. They believe that by providing a ghost bride for their deceased son, they are ensuring his happiness in the afterlife and preventing his restless spirit from haunting the living. This desperation is evident in the auction wars, described by a Shaanxi hospital worker, where families compete fiercely for the bodies of recently deceased young girls, often while the girls are still alive. The worker recounted how families would rush to the hospital upon hearing news of a young girl's impending death, engaging in a bidding war for her remains. This frantic competition, often taking place before the girl had even breathed her last, reveals the desperation of families seeking to adhere to tradition and the callous disregard for human life that can result. The grim trade in corpses and ashes highlights the ethical implications of commodifying death. The bodies of deceased women, often from marginalized communities, are reduced to objects of trade, their value determined by their suitability for a spectral marriage. This practice not only dehumanizes the deceased but also perpetuates harmful gender stereotypes and reinforces the societal pressure on women to marry, even in death. The vulnerability of marginalized individuals, particularly women with disabilities or those from impoverished backgrounds, is further exposed by this trade, as they become easy targets for exploitation and violence. Adding to the complexity of the issue is the lack of specific regulations in China outlawing ghost marriages or the sale of corpses. While grave robbing and murder are certainly illegal, the absence of laws directly addressing the practice of ghost marriage makes it difficult to prosecute those involved. Furthermore, eradicating a tradition so deeply ingrained in certain communities presents a formidable challenge. Efforts to raise awareness and educate the public about the dangers and ethical implications of the corpse trade are crucial, but changing deeply held beliefs and practices requires a long-term, multifaceted approach. The installation of CCTV cameras and concrete coffins in graveyards, while a practical measure to deter grave robbing, serves as a stark reminder of the ongoing struggle to protect the deceased and preserve the sanctity of burial sites. The grim reality of the corpse trade casts a long shadow over the practice of ghost marriage. While the tradition itself may be rooted in love, loss, and a desire to honor the dead, the demand for ghost brides has created a market of shadows, where the vulnerable are exploited and the deceased are commodified. This grim trade underscores the complex interplay between tradition, superstition, and economic desperation, and highlights the urgent need for greater awareness, stricter enforcement, and a renewed focus on the ethical implications of this ancient practice. Chapter 6. Stolen Brides and Silent Grooms. The Human Cost of Tradition. The human cost of ghost marriage is a heavy burden borne by the most vulnerable, a chilling testament to the dark side of tradition. It's a cost measured not just in monetary transactions, but in stolen lives, shattered futures, and the enduring scars of exploitation and coercion. Women with disabilities, those from impoverished backgrounds, and young girls robbed of their futures are the primary victims of this macabre practice, their stories a stark reminder of the human toll exacted by the pursuit of spectral unions. One harrowing account tells of Chen, a woman with disabilities, betrayed by her own family for the price of 6,000 yuan, $8,300. In 2003, her family, lured by the promise of money, fabricated a death certificate and sold her into a ghost marriage. Trafficked to another province, she was drugged and prepared for a ritualistic union with the deceased. The deception was so complete, the preparations so meticulous, that she was nearly buried alive before she managed to escape, a chilling testament to the lengths to which some will go to fulfill this tradition. Her story is not unique. Countless women with disabilities are targeted for ghost marriages, their vulnerability exploited by families and traffickers who see them as commodities to be bought and sold. In 2016, the world learned of the brutal murders of two women with mental disabilities, their lives tragically cut short to satisfy the demand for ghost brides. Ma Changhua, the man responsible for their deaths, confessed to killing them so he could sell their bodies for 40,000 yuan each. These women, already marginalized by society, became victims of a tradition that valued their corpses more than their lives. Their stories are a heartbreaking reminder of the extreme vulnerability of those with mental disabilities, and the urgent need to protect them from exploitation. The demand for ghost brides has created a grotesque market, a shadow economy where the bodies of deceased women are treated as commodities, their value determined by age, appearance, and the freshness of their remains. Between 2017 and 2019, a black market thrived in the provinces of Shandong, Shaanxi, and Shaanxi, where the price of a female corpse could reach hundreds of thousands of yuan. This macabre trade targeted not only the recently deceased but even married, elderly women, their graves desecrated and their remains stolen to fulfill the demand. This blatant disregard for human dignity and the sanctity of death is a chilling indictment of the darkest aspects of the ghost marriage tradition. The case of a 16-year-old girl in Shandong province in 2019 reveals another layer of exploitation. After her tragic death from a fall, her adoptive parents allegedly arranged a ghost marriage for her, receiving 66,000 yuan, $9,200, in return. Her biological father, surnamed Sun, was devastated by the news, not only by the loss of his daughter but also by the callous commodification of her death. He accused the adoptive parents of abuse and intentional homicide, though authorities claimed insufficient evidence to pursue those charges. His grief was compounded by the knowledge that his daughter's death had been exploited for financial gain, a profound betrayal by those entrusted with her care. The story highlights the lack of legal protection for vulnerable individuals and the challenges of prosecuting those who profit from this macabre practice. The psychological and social consequences for those forced into ghost marriages, whether living or dead, are profound and far-reaching. Living individuals coerced into these unions often experience social isolation, ostracized by their communities and treated as pariahs. They are expected to assume the role of a widow or widower, their own identities erased, their futures circumscribed by the demands of tradition. The pressure to uphold the custom and appease the deceased can be overwhelming, silencing their own needs and desires. They may be forced to live with the deceased's family, subjected to their rules and expectations, their lives forever intertwined with the memory of a person they never knew. Children born from ghost marriages, sometimes referred to as orphans, face a unique set of challenges. They are often stigmatized and discriminated against, their lineage tainted by the spectral union of their parents. They may be excluded from social events, denied educational opportunities, and face difficulty finding partners, their lives forever marked by the circumstances of their birth. This social stigma can have a devastating impact on their self-esteem and their ability to integrate into society. Dr. Huang Jingchun, who conducted extensive field research on ghost marriages in Shaanxi province, observed that the rising price of corpses reflects not only the gender imbalance but also deeply ingrained cultural beliefs. The fear of restless spirits, the belief that the dead must have their wishes fulfilled to avoid bringing misfortune upon the living, and the pressure to maintain family lineage all contribute to the perpetuation of this tradition. These beliefs, passed down through generations, create a powerful social force that makes it difficult to eradicate the practice, even in the face of its obvious human cost. The stories of stolen brides and silent grooms are a testament to the human cost of tradition, a reminder that even the most deeply held beliefs can be twisted and exploited, leading to devastating consequences. The vulnerability of women with disabilities, the desperation of families seeking closure, and the greed of those who profit from the corpse trade all contribute to the dark underbelly of ghost marriage. As we continue our exploration of this ancient custom, we must remember the human faces behind the rituals, the lives touched by tragedy, and the urgent need to protect the vulnerable from the shadows of tradition. Ghost marriage, a practice spanning millennia and cultures, reveals a complex interplay of love, loss, tradition, and societal pressures. Rooted in ancient China, it aims to unite the living and the dead, or even two deceased individuals, through symbolic or physical rituals. Motivations vary, from appeasing restless spirits and ensuring happiness in the afterlife to fulfilling filial piety and addressing social stigmas surrounding unmarried individuals. While often driven by genuine grief and a desire for closure, the practice also has a dark underbelly. The demand for ghost brides, particularly in regions with gender imbalances, has fueled a disturbing trade in corpses and ashes, exploiting vulnerable individuals and commodifying death. The escalating prices paid for female remains have led to grave robbing, kidnapping, and even murder, highlighting the devastating human cost of this tradition. Women with disabilities and those from impoverished backgrounds are especially vulnerable, their bodies treated as mere commodities in a macabre marketplace. The rituals themselves are a poignant blend of wedding and funeral rites, varying across cultures. From the exchange of symbolic dowries and the burning of paper effigies in China to the leaving of red packets in Taiwan, these ceremonies reflect unique cultural beliefs and anxieties surrounding death and the afterlife. The practice also extends beyond East Asia, with variations found in Southeast Asia and even France, where posthumous marriage gained legal recognition after a tragic dam disaster. These findings offer valuable insights into the human relationship with death and the enduring power of love and loss. They highlight the complexities of cultural practices and the potential for tradition to be both a source of comfort and a tool of exploitation. Understanding the motivations and consequences of ghost marriage can inform discussions about ethical considerations surrounding death, gender inequality, and the vulnerability of marginalized communities. It also sheds light on the diverse ways humans grapple with mortality and seek to find meaning and connection in the face of loss. This exploration of ghost marriage raises important questions about the balance between tradition and human rights, the commodification of death, and the ethical responsibilities of individuals and communities. Where do we draw the line between honoring cultural practices and protecting the vulnerable? How can we address the underlying societal pressures that fuel these practices? And what can we learn from the diverse ways in which cultures around the world confront mortality? We invite you to share your thoughts, reflections, and questions in the comments below. What aspects of ghost marriage resonated most with you? What further questions do you have about this complex practice? Let's continue the conversation and learn from each other's perspectives. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and suggest topics for future explorations. The journey of understanding the human experience is an ongoing one, and your curiosity and engagement are invaluable.